Hi, friends. Thanks for joining us. Do us a huge favor. Smash that subscribe button. Give us some likes. Leave a comment. Bernardo, where can they find us on social media?
Yeah, you can find us at Ray Benny Sports. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Check us out also on Reddit and Discord, and leave us a rating on your favorite podcast provider.
I used your government name. So then we get
So,
some bomber talk, and we get
oh,
some Jets talk, and we get some quick shots. Let's go into bomber talk. Stand out on the ice, pavement, field, or in the stands with a custom airbrushed helmet, goalie mask, or any project. A local Manitoba business with affordable solutions. Affordable. Check out Fahrenheit Airbrushing on Facebook or call them at 204-891-7431.
and don't forget to tell them that Ray and Benny sent you.
Affordable. Anyway,
Affordable. Check out their stuff on Facebook. There's some good goalie helmets that they just came up with. Rustic feeling helmet, and it looks really good.
yeah, check out our page. We've reposted some of them, so
Yeah.
check them out. They're awesome. Also, give them a like and a follow on Facebook. Let's go right into it. Bomber Talk, like I said, brought to you by Fahrenheit Airbrushing. Biggest takeaway from the win against Montreal. They won on the last play. I mentioned last week they were 2-4 in games where the deficit was 3 or less, and they went out and they got a gutsy win. Yes, it wasn't against all of Montreal's starters, and yes, Montreal didn't have anything to play for, but in a case like this kind of win where home field and the West Final, I should say, was on the line, it does give you more confidence and experience when it comes down to the wire. Not to say that this team is inexperienced. We know that they are. And we've seen them do this a lot. But clinching the West Final at home, I think, is a big deal. Thank you, Mother Nature, by the way. But, I'm sure the players on the Owls were also, it's not like they weren't playing hard. I'm sure some of them wouldn't have mind playing spoilers and knock down the Bombers a bit. But, Bombers held it in there, played from behind, down 12 with 14 minutes left, and they came away with a win. So I think it's a big win.
Did you say gusty wind or gusty win?
I think, oh, I see what you did there. I thought I said gutsy win, but it could be a gusty win. It's a
Yeah, I mean,
club.
it wasn't pretty, but one thing that this team showed is they had no quit in them, right?
Yeah.
Things weren't going their way. They were settling for, again, a lot of field goals. Castillo kicked or attempted 7 field goals, right? Connected on 5 of them. The one right before the winning one, he missed. It was close to what, 60, 61 yards.
Yeah.
And again, with that wind swirling around and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the wind came up at a good time for the Bombers, and it helped them on that last punch by Montreal. Gave him good field position, gave Castillo the last chance to kind of connect there. So, yeah, the team has fight, right? And like you say, Montreal rested some guys. They took Fajardo played like at least half the game, right? I think they took him out in the third quarter. So he played quite a bit. And it's a CFL. You can only rest so many guys anyways before that salary cap creeps around the corner and sends you from some fines because you went over it. So Tyrese Beverette was playing, so a lot of big guys were still out there for Montreal. And yeah, maybe by the end of the game some of them weren't, but yeah, gutsy effort for the Bombers to pull away and come away with that game. And it did not look good there. And I was resigned to the fact that we were probably having to host the West Semi instead of the West Final. So good to see them pull it out.
Yeah, and winning streaks are great going into the playoffs. But, I kind of think there's some balance there. They have that 8-game winning streak, but they lost one. It was a bit of a reality check, and they won a tough one where something was on the line. So I think that gives the team a good emotional boost, and the bye gives them a good time to rest. And it was also encouraging to see Caleros pass for over 300 yards when they couldn't get the running game going.
Yeah.
In the end, they on the 17 and the 6, you gotta score touchdowns.
Yes.
You gotta get TDs, man. But just saying,
Yeah.
arm in action and pile up the yards.
Okay, well, that's the thing, and they got it done, and it'll be interesting to see once these two teams play again, because Montreal hasn't had a lot to play for in the last little bit, and now they've lost their last couple games going into the playoffs, and now have a bye week, right? So I know they played Fajardo and probably just to get him some reps, so he's not sitting for so long, anyways. But it'll be interesting to see where they're both at in a couple of weeks when they're hosting the East and the West final kind of thing to see who comes out better out of the gate. Was it the Bombers because they pulled a victory out here and had something to play for, whereas Montreal didn't have anything to play for and just kind of went with the motions, right?
Yeah,
I feel like Montreal probably would have rather Winnipeg have to go on the road. But at the same time, I guess Montreal has to handle their own business before they can worry about Winnipeg, or Winnipeg worries about Montreal anyways. Probably
absolutely.
didn't matter to them.
Absolutely. So, with the Bombers clinching the West Final, what do you think they need to focus on most, no matter who they face in the West Final during this bye and going into that game? I don't know if I should say what concerns you most, but what maybe red flags do you see popping up?
And you kind of just mentioned it. It's the field goals from the 25-yard or the 15-yard field goals, right? Because they're, like you say, they're at the what yard line for those, 6 or whatever, right? 6
17.
and 15, something like that, right? It's 7 yards. So
Yep.
they have to finish those ones. I can understand the further ones, like the 50 ones, the 53, 47. Okay. But when you're inside that 30 or 20, you need to start finishing those instead of leaving a game to be close, because at some point, and it has bit them in the butt this year. We just saw it 2 weeks ago against Toronto where they couldn't score and they settled for field goals. And Castillo unfortunately had an off day. Like this game, he missed two, but one was from 61 yards, and I'm not sure couldn't find where the other one was from. So they have to finish. The offense has to click early and get it going early, because even in this game, it was field goals. They only had 9 points at half, I believe, right? They have to click on offense and get that offense going and help that defense out, because the defense has still been playing pretty good.
Yeah,
And now that offense has got to step up.
absolutely. Um, and with the offense, so much of the identity is in bully ball. But you look at the past couple Grey Cups, you look at the past few regular season games against the Argos and the Alouettes specifically, and the Argos and the Alouettes aren't afraid to go toe to toe and punch the Bombers in the face.
Yeah.
It seems like the Bombers have a hard time maybe replying to that because they're so used to be physically imposing. And at least that's what it looked like in the Grey Cup. And then the Bombers couldn't find their way until maybe the end of the game. And obviously not even that in the past couple. But I'm not a sports psychologist and I'm not a football expert, but they got to do something. And if that means getting the ball out of Zach Collaros' hands quicker and playing more of a finesse short passing game, if they have to be a chameleon and change to the game plan, they got to do that earlier than they have in the past under Buck Pierce. He has to be able to recognize that teams are clamping down on the rushing game, especially in the playoffs. They're not allowing the Bombers to establish some line through the rushing game. So they got to get that ball out of Zach Collaros' hands fast and get people off of the line of scrimmage, get the linebackers backing off, I think. So I guess offensive strategy, Buck Pierce has got to just see the earlier and make that transition earlier.
Yeah, I mean, the defense has been playing pretty well. Special teams has been holding their own. And yeah, this team will go only as far as their offense can kind of take them as well. It's funny you say that with Montreal and Toronto. They play different ball against the Bombers than say Saskatchewan and BC have, especially in the playoffs, right?
Yep.
Once those Grey Cup games are a totally different ball game than the West Final has been, and all of a sudden, like you say, the Bombers are getting punched in the mouth when usually they're the ones punching, right? So now they have to withstand it, and it takes them a bit to get going. And both those games have been close, obviously, right? Their last second plays that have cost them the game in both those Grey Cups. So they're gonna have to get off the schneid a little bit earlier, and again, finish touchdowns, not field goals. Will help them, but yeah, it'll be tough. We'll see who they get in the West Final, but it'll be an interesting game there first before the Grey Cup, before we can even talk about the Grey Cup. So.
Ooh, I hope BC and Saskatchewan beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah, and the weather's looking good for that West Final, so that's kind of unfortunate, especially if it's BC coming to town.
Who would you rather see in the West Final? Because we're
I
not
think
going
the
to talk
ball.
until we know who wins. So who would you rather?
Sorry,
We'll do
who would
predictions.
I rather see?
Who would you rather see between Saskatchewan and BC?
I think just the way they've played them this year, I think BC. The Bombers have played them pretty well and shut them down. They played them well with Vernon Adams in there. That's that game at home where they shut them down pretty good, where we thought BC was going to come in and steamroll the Bombers. And then the first game with Nathan Rourke back, I'll give them a little bit of leeway on that one for BC. But again, the Bombers shut them down very well there too. And in the end, the first game, there was close. It The first one that they lost to BC. That was another close game that they could have gone either way.
Bombers shut out the BC Lions with Vernon Adams.
Yeah.
Shut them out.
Who would you rather face? Did you answer?
No, I didn't. Obviously, for energy and emotion, the Riders would be the best one. But I think for matchup wise, I think the Bombers have something, and Jordan Younger has something on that BC offense. And coming into Winnipeg, I think that would be our advantage, depending on what
Yeah.
Mother Nature does again. Early
Yeah.
reports say maybe not, but we'll see. Bomber fans, put your comments and thoughts in the comment section below. Let's go to some CFL talk quickly. Who is going to represent each division in the award categories? I'll go first. MOP, or should I go? I'll go. Let's go list from bottom to top. Leave MOP to the end. Most outstanding Canadian. I have Justin McGinnis against Isaac Adeyemi Berglund. 7 sacks in a year that sacks weren't had to be made, they weren't there to be had. Guys weren't eating. Like 8 was a league lead, and he had 7. So he's a strong one in Montreal, and Justin McGinnis had a great year in BC as a receiver, led the league in receiving. So that's almost outstanding Canadians I have.
All right. I got to go. I'm going maybe a little bit homerish, but I'm going Brady Oliveira. And that's kind of, it'll lead up to the rest of my picks here, kind of thing. And then I'm going with the same guy, Isaac Dayemi Berglund. I have him as well, kind of thing. Pretty good season for him. Like you say, the sacks were up there. And the sacks, again, this year were not like crazy. Like even Willie Jefferson was kind of on the low end of his career stats, kind of thing. So
Yeah, no double
good
digit.
season.
No double
Okay.
digits.
Yeah.
What do you got for linemen?
This one's tough because it's tough to find stats for linemen, and unless you're watching tape all the time or whatever, which I don't have access to. So I went with Drew Desjarlais and versus Logan Ferlin from Saskatchewan.
I got Logan Ferlin too. We played across the line, despite the Riders being a depleted line.
Yeah.
Like they gave up the 5th least amount of sacks in the league. That's not bad for a depleted.
Hmm.
And I took Brandon Revenberg.
Yeah, good bounce back season for him.
It's weird. Like the worst teams, I think, like Hamilton, Ottawa, and who else is bad in the East?
East? Well, that's it. Toronto, I guess. Montreal.
Oh,
You
maybe
got Calgary,
Ottawa.
Edmonton.
They like led the league in the least amount of sacks given up.
Yeah,
That's
Hamilton
shocking.
had a pretty good season in that, didn't they?
Yeah. So maybe
Yeah.
that's all about people not getting many sacks this year. Who do you got for special teams?
Janarian Grant in the East, and then I'm giving it to a punter, Jake Julian in the West. Edged out Milligan for me in the West.
I did the same thing. This guy was a field flipping punter.
Yeah.
They all do I think he'll win it? I'm not going to say yet, but that's who I think is also going to be there.
Yeah,
Rookie of the
Janarian
year.
Grant with the 4 TDs, I think, right? I think that
Yep.
probably takes it.
Rookie of the year, Trevor Reed. I'll go for Saskatchewan, another lineman. Played left tackle on a very good line, as we mentioned before. And I'll go with Mackay Polk in Toronto. Great receiving year for him.
I'm going to go with Ontario Wilson, getting over 1,000 yards in the CFL. Tough to do for usually a rookie receiver, getting it going like that in the CFL. And then in the East, I had Jeffrey Canton Arku from I believe Montreal. I can't find the page here that I had open here with his information. I lost him.
It's all good.
Yeah, but yeah, that's who I will go with there.
Let's go for our most outstanding defensive player. I think it might not be unanimous across the board, but I'm gonna go with Milligan, Saskatchewan, and Beverett in Montreal. I've been a huge Beverett fan since the beginning of the year. I love his defensive play, and Milligan's been crazy as a ball hawk. So those are the two I have.
Yeah, that was probably the easiest one for me as well. Those are the two guys I have as well.
So what do you have for most outstanding player? West and East, East and West, whichever you want to start with.
All right, so this is where I kind of lead it off as well. So MOP, I'm going with Brady Oliveira for the Bombers, leading the league in rushing. Put up about, I believe, about 400 yards receiving as well. Touchdowns weren't the greatest, but he did lead this team in the Bombers to victory. And I know Milligan had a wicked season as well. But the thing that drives me crazy here is
Uh,
you had the MOP, right? Most outstanding player. And I knew this, but it didn't really click in until we were doing this. And then you have the best defensive player.
yeah.
So why not do two separate ones, offensive and defense, and then maybe an MOP, or just do two separate ones and leave it at that? Because who on defense? Solomon Eliminian won in 2014, but when I was looking through the list, no other defensive player really ever won this award.
No,
So it's not going to be Milligan versus Beverett in this. So I went Brady and I picked Bo Levi, even though I don't think he should win it just because his team didn't make the playoffs. But there was no other good options really in the East there, besides Beverett, I guess. But again, I'm sticking offensive here.
Bo Levi Mitchell is the rightful candidate for the East, and Brady Oliveira from the West. CFL fans, put your thoughts on the nominees below. What will you remember about Randy Ambrosie being commissioner?
Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff will be, for me anyways, will be the expansion talk. A lot of expansion talk, the 10th team, and it really going nowhere. And then the stats debacle of not having proper stats for that time. And I know Ambrosie has done some decent things. Like ownership right now is good. It's solid, probably the best it's been in a long time for the CFL. But the negative stuff will outweigh some of this other stuff, and the expansion stuff is probably the biggest thing for me.
I'm gonna give the fellow Winnipegger a break and give him his dues or flowers or whatever they're gonna call it right now. Stats, stats, whatever. Frick. So pissed off about stats. Uh, I was never confident in the drive to get Halifax a team. Without a building, I never really believed in that push, but he exhausted it all he could. But he got the league through labor strife. He was able to make changes to the ratio without really making changes to the ratio. Ownership, solid ownership in Vancouver, hopefully solid ownership in Edmonton. Got the league through COVID. Got a financially suffering league through COVID. Tried American TV in different venues. Are they successful? I'm not sure. So I think those major wins will overshadow my expectation that Halifax will not have a team and stats. So hopefully those are rolling and still some days. Meh. Yeah. I would have liked to see what he would have done with the league if COVID didn't interrupt it. That'd be
Yeah,
fun.
I mean, the league was going pretty well up until that point, right? And then it kind of took a step back and had to rebuild it. So yeah, he's done some great things. He's done some good things. Unfortunately, has not completed some of the tasks that he was kind of set out to be. And it could have been, even if it wasn't Halifax, at least had another team on the radar that you kind of were still working towards and give some hope that there would be a 10th team, hopefully in the next couple of years, right? Because now you're still starting from zero, right? With all this stuff. Maybe now Halifax is not going to happen. But what are your other options? Because you need the CFL needs that 10th team. Like this unbalanced divisions, the unbalanced schedule, it's not good for the league. They need that 10th team, and it'd be fantastic to have it. And the next guy is going to have to start from scratch and try to build that up, and hopefully they can get it done. But it's probably going to take now probably 5 years before that happens, right?
I don't believe there is no way in some kind of system that the CFL can't find a way that teams aren't taking buys in the final week of the season and all the stupid stuff that happens where some teams are playing on a 5 day schedule. That should never happen in 19 weeks.
No.
Like if you have to give the whole league a break for the week, figure it out. Like, come on. I think that's more, but they do need a 10th team, without a doubt.
Yeah, you're never going to probably, well, obviously it's not going to work to never have a team on the bye in the last week of the season, right? Because
Yes.
I mean, it just doesn't work. But maybe I don't know. I've always liked the fact of maybe dropping to 16 games right now until you found that 10th team, because then you play each team twice and that's it. But
That's true.
that doesn't work either because the CFL needs to gate money, right? So
Good decision for the Stamps to keep Dickenson as head coach or GM or in any capacity. Well, as coach, yeah. Like, I didn't think they were gonna kick his ass out the door, but I'm shocked that this guy is still GM. Like, just because what? He was Huffnagel's chosen one, but he's not Huffnagel? Like, I don't think Dickenson has enough contacts. I don't think he has the ins that Huffnagel had with being in the NFL with his NFL experience. Sure, he played quarterback in the NFL, in with three different teams or whatever, but he wasn't with them for a long time. I don't know how well his connections are in regards to the coaching and scouting and managerial world. And he doesn't have any other experience outside of the Calgary Stampeders organization. Uh, and where's his football experience outside of the Calgary organization? So I really don't think this is a good idea. He should not be GM. He should not.
I agree. If you were going to keep him, man, keep him in that maybe that head coach role, and that's it. Because he's 11, 24, and 1 in his last couple of seasons as both roles. Whereas before, as just coach and with Hufnagel being the GM, I mean, he was guiding the team to first, a Grey Cup appearance, Grey Cup win, and all that stuff. And ended up way over 500 record,
Yep.
right? And now in the last couple of years, taking both roles on, that hasn't worked out for him. And we've seen it with a lot of teams that have a guy in both roles. Chris Jones, it didn't work. It doesn't work. It's too hard because not only do you have to now sign these guys or play hardball with them in contract talks, and then you got to go coach them. To me, that just doesn't seem, it's better to have that separate. So that guy's the a-hole, and the coach is like, hey, man, we're going to try and get you that cash. Let's go out and, we'll play this way and I'll help you get there kind of thing, right? Whereas a GM now, with both roles, you're like, hey, man, you're not good enough for this. But hey, man, you're good enough to play all game or whatever it is, right? Kind of thing. So it's tough.
You have to have a special personality. You have to be a Wally.
Yes.
You have to be a
Yeah,
Wally.
yeah, exactly. I don't think Dickinson has that personality.
No. Huffnagel's it's just you're consistent. Yeah, you can be a bit of a dick, but you're consistent where your position is.
Yeah.
Dave Dickenson, man, he came into coaching like what a few years after he retired. He's one of the boys through the system. So I don't know, man. Good for them. Save money, maybe a bit.
Got to figure out that quarterback position, I guess. It doesn't look good when you gave up
Semi-final.
Bo Levi like that. And look what he did.
Oh, totally. Looks foolish.
Yeah.
Semi-final predictions. Let's start with BC at Saskatchewan. Who do you got?
I'm going to take Saskatchewan. I just don't like the way BC has been playing lately. And I know they were better with Vernon Adams last game, but you're also playing Montreal, who didn't have a lot to play for again. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out against Saskatchewan, but I think Saskatchewan will take this one.
I'm gonna go with Vernon Adams being the story, and the story will get him past the Riders. And I also like BC's slight edge in recent playoff experience. Like I'm kind of scared as a Bomber fan to be for the Vernon Adams story. It's just something added some momentum that can be built going into this. We'll see, but I'll go with BC. I'm going with the story rather than sense. Let's go Ottawa and Toronto. I'm going to go with Toronto. They are steady, and I just don't like the way Ottawa limped into the playoffs, losing five in a row and just barely getting past the Ticats. Ticats, how can you not pound the ball from the one three times? What is that? That's crazy. But yeah, I'm going to go with Toronto, and they're at home.
Yeah, I'm going with Toronto as well. Just the same thing, like you say, Ottawa has been limping it since the halfway mark of this season, and have not looked good and barely looked good against Hamilton, a team that was out of it as well. So I'm gonna go with Toronto, unfortunately, and unfortunately for Bobby Dice, the season started off strong and looked good for Ottawa, but they didn't end up beating a lot of the better teams. Really, they got the win on the Bombers, but I think that was when the Bombers again were starting off poorly. So.
CFL fans, put your predictions for the semifinals, playoff time. Winnipeg Jets talk. Thoughts, concerns on the past week. St. Louis Kraken Flames in the recent game just finished against the Leafs. Ooh. And when the Leafs come to the arena, it sucks. It's so loud for the it sucks. But any thoughts, concerns there?
I haven't checked the attendance tonight. I wonder if it ended up selling out just because the Jets on the winning streak and the Leafs in town kind of thing. But
Got to be the best crowd so far this year.
Yeah, I mean the Jets have been playing well over the season, right? I mean, and not it's not always pretty, it's not always perfect. These last three games, besides tonight against Toronto, I guess you can throw that in too. They were close games against St. Louis, Seattle, and Calgary, right? They're all basically one goal games. Calgary, it was an empty netter, and then tonight going down 4-0 to Toronto, giving up almost 20 or 18 shots, 18 or 20 shots in the first period.
Yeah.
To tonight to Toronto is not a good thing, and to be down 4-0 at home like that, that's tough. And we've kind of seen it, like they've gone away with it. They've gone away with slow starts against the likes of St. Louis or Seattle or Calgary because they don't have the firepower that Toronto does. And then tonight, it reared its ugly head when you get like that. You're taking penalties early. And the penalty kill did. Only twice they were shorthanded. Both Logan Stanley, by the way. But they killed both of those off, you
Yeah.
know. So that's good, but it's not good to start a game off on the penalty kill and get behind the eight ball a little bit there. So overall, they played okay. Nothing fantastic, nothing spectacular, but they were getting it done. They were outscoring their opponent, which they need to do. But tonight, things didn't go there. Two for four on the power play again tonight, though. At least the power play is clicking still and looking good. Connor had a couple goals and 2 assists tonight. But yeah,
Back in the-
they got the wins. Got a bit lucky in some sense in them. Goaltending has been really good, and the penalty kill has stepped up.
I really like the depth of this team. I love this stat of no player on the team before tonight had more than 10 points. However, 10 players have at least 6 points. Like, who do you focus on with a team that was, other than tonight, playing with such good depth and scoring across the lines? And they have that almost plus 20 in goal differential. I don't know how
Yeah.
long they can sustain that for 4.5 goals per game. I think it can sustain that defense where they're only allowing 2 goals a game, again, other than tonight. But uh, of course, the main concern of mine with the Jets being plus 18 is again that number one line being minus against goals. And they got split up going into the third period. Ehlers got moved to the top line. Connor got moved to the third line, or whatever it was actually blended into. So the concern came a real concern when you saw them being split up this evening. So yeah, that's my main concern.
Yeah, and like you saying, St. Louis both goals. Shifley line was on the ice. Seattle again, 2 more goals against with the Shifley line. Calgary again, 1 more goal while they're on the ice. So that's 5 there. I mean, they're getting the power play goals. They're getting goals and a shorthanded goal against Calgary. But yeah, in a game like tonight where the goaltending may, and I can't blame this on Hellebuck because I didn't unfortunately get to check out the game tonight. But when your goaltending is not top notch and only allowing 2 or 3 goals a game, those goals against will come back to haunt you. And again, tonight, I don't know if how many times Shifley was on the ice, but if you're saying they got split up, chances are they were probably on the ice for quite a few of those, or at least a couple of those.
What's up with Velarde? He didn't score his first goal until that San Jose game.
Yeah, you got one tonight.
Oh, that's
I
good.
I thought at first that when I looked, Connor had gotten a hat trick, but they must have switched one at some point and gave it to Velarde. So
Well, that's good. So star performer for you?
I'm going to give it to Cole Perfetti, who had a couple of good games, winning goal against Calgary in there, has stepped up and played well in his games. Unfortunately, I don't think anything point wise tonight, but so far so good for him on the season.
Yeah, he's having a solid season. I gotta go with Neil Pionk, 5 game point streak until tonight, with one
-2
goal.
tonight.
Huh? He got 2 assists.
Sorry, it was -2 after the first period, I think, tonight. So
There you go. 5 game point streak, maybe broken. 1 goal, 8 assists, 9 points in those 5 games. He's playing great. He was playing great with Dylan Sandberg. And it really opened up a game that we haven't seen from him for a while. And that's not throwing shade at Brandon Dillon. That it's definitely shouting out to Sandberg stepping up his play. Like, dude can skate. He has speed. Like, he's what, 6'4", 220? He has a shot. He can play up and down the line on the power play, the PK. He can hold his own against the top forwards in his jet zone. Man, I'm really excited about that dude. But yeah, he's really opening Neil Pionk's game up. So I'll give him star prime performer Might not give him one for the rest of the year. Who knows?
Well, if you went by the stats from tonight, and again, a lot of people don't like plus minus and all that, but Pionk was -4 and
Yeah.
Sandberg was -5. So
Again. So let's look at the week ahead. They got the Wings, the Jackets, and the Lightning. Big picture. What will the record be after these three games?
yeah, I think they could probably go 2-1 here. The only issue I would have is that Detroit's on the road, and sometimes now you're coming off an 8-game winning streak. You lose one to Toronto here, and who knows? Maybe now you drop a couple, right? Because all that energy spent trying to keep that winning streak alive, and to try that they tried to tie. I mean, a win tonight would have got them the record or tied the record for most wins in a row, regular like over the regular season, right?
Yeah.
So they lost that, but I mean, Detroit not great 5-on-5. Defense is not that great. Then their finishing is not there very very well either, so they can take advantage of that. Columbus has not been very good, although Columbus just handled Edmonton very good tonight, 6-1. So that's interesting. But yeah, they should be able to think. I believe they should be able to take Columbus and Detroit. Tampa might be a good battle. They always have good games against them, so I could see them maybe dropping that when they come back home for that game.
I see the Jets going 3-0 after this. Maybe a wake-up call. I can see the Jets sweeping the next week. Fatigue might be an issue when Tampa comes to town, but Tampa's also playing a game every second day this week. So the Jets home cooking might be an advantage. Might be. Um, what kind of fan are you? Do you think this is a beginning of a tailspin? Do you think this is a little blip in the radar? Because let's be real, the pace wouldn't have been kept up. They ain't going 82-0. What is your guess as into what happens? Has this team changed enough? Has its DNA? Because we know its roster hasn't changed much since last year, but has their DNA changed enough for this not to be a tailspin? You know what I'm saying?
It'll be interesting this week because it's not a lot of tough teams that they're playing besides Tampa, right? So they could get away with winning all three of these games and being 11-1. But until some of the tougher teams come into town, because even last week, St. Louis, Seattle, Calgary is going to be probably teams that are battling for a playoff spot. They're not necessarily going to be top of their division, and they won those games, but one goal games. I know Calgary was two, but one's an empty netter. Um, so yeah, and then you face a better team with more offensive power in Toronto tonight, and Toronto took advantage and maybe worked the Jets defense a little bit and exposed that defense more so than say Calgary and Seattle. They did give up 2 goals, 3 goals against Seattle, two against St. Louis, three against Seattle, and three against Calgary. Right. So they were giving up goals in this past week. So and now the floodgates opened a bit more today. I don't think it'll go into tailspin, but like you say, you're not going to win 8 games in a row all the time. And if they start getting to that 6 wins out of 10 or 7 wins out of 10 kind of routine, hey, you're still doing pretty good in that sense kind of thing. So I could see them probably leveling out, losing games, winning games, kind of back and forth.
This Jets starting six defense is not significantly better than last year's to make me think a first round matchup against a team like Dallas will be any different than last year's matchup against a team like Colorado.
I agree with that. I agree.
Just saying. Just saying.
You got lots of time to make a trade,
Yeah, yeah.
or Logan Stanley will finally turn into an NHL defenseman.
Well, he's
One,
6.
one or the other.
Well, with this,
But at least he wasn't -5 tonight, I guess.
who needs to step up? Not saying that the Jets need a lot of players to step up, and I mentioned this guy earlier, but I think Velarde needs to step up a little, especially on line one. Uh, yeah, there's just more of an expectation with him coming in healthy in the off season and what his offensive, especially, output would be, and it's a little disappointing, not to sound harsh, but yeah, I'm really looking for him to step up.
Yeah, I'd like to see him do a little bit more on the score sheet. I'd also like to see maybe the fourth line step up and add a goal here and there because they haven't done that since Kupari scored, and that was early in the first game of the season, right? I don't
Yeah.
think Barron's got a goal, and Iafallo hasn't done much. So yeah, that line kind of needs to chip in and to get a goal here and there. I'm obviously not saying score some hat tricks or anything like that, but yeah, get a goal here and there and start chipping in and doing a little bit more on the ice. especially because at some point the top line's goals and points are going to dry up for a bit, right? It's not they're not Shifley and Connor are not going to get points every game, and you can't rely on that for them to do it all the time. So these other guys are going to have to step up and do it as well. But
That's good.
hey, it's been a fun time. It's a good start to the season. They're 8-1, but it's funny because the Central Division is still pretty close. Like all those teams are actually doing pretty well. That it's not like the Jets have run away and have a good cushion right now.
No, always looking to game 20.
Yeah.
Game 20, they say, will tell you what the team is for real.
American Thanksgiving, isn't it? That's in a month.
Just got by that marker, though, and for a lot of folks on their way to 110 points.
Yeah, for the Jets, it's not till January, right?
Oh, sorry. Quick hits for the Jets. Did the Jets make a mistake not signing Cole Perfetti long term? I'll still stick with my opinion when he got signed with no. I still think it's a good deal for both. Perfetti, no doubt, still has to prove himself beyond this small sample size early this season. And also, he has to stay healthy for the year. So I don't think it's a mistake at this point.
I think it will end up being a mistake because unless he could maybe like obviously they didn't even talk about not obvious, but apparently they didn't even talk about a long-term deal. So unless I heard some numbers going, hey, the Jets were offering him 6 years for 6 million for 7 years or 7 million for 8 years or something like that, it's hard to know. But I think it will be a mistake at the end of it because I think they'll end up having to sign him for maybe 1 million more or so than they could have gotten him for this year. But again, it was a risk, obviously, like you say, it's a risk because if he doesn't pan out, then you're stuck, you're on the hook. But I think he's on his way to having a very good season. And again, last year he had these streaky spots where he played really well and then tapered off. But so hopefully he's past that in another year of maturity in the NHL.
Yeah, I think physically is my big question. I think the skill is there. The skill is there. It was a, I think last year was kind of what I thought would happen. As physically he wasn't quite there yet, and then that's just not being about injured too. It's about him being in the corners and him being a force, and it just we'll see, man. We'll see. Which players from the Jets have a chance to make it to the Four Nations Cup? Let's go. You name a player, then I'll name a player, then you'll name a player, then I might name a player, then we will be done. So you can go.
And that'll probably be it. There's not that many players, really. I'm gonna go with Connor Hellebuyck. He's making Team USA for sure.
I'll go with Kyle Connor. He was making Team USA.
Yeah, I have that too. I believe he would make it as well. And his goal scoring right now is crazy pace right now. So yeah.
Who's left?
Hey,
Who's left?
Canada, I think Josh Morrissey I think Shifley has an opportunity, but I think Josh Morrissey probably has the better opportunity of the two of them.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Yeah, I was looking through. I mean, there's really nothing unless, well, no, because it's only 4 teams, right?
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like that it's only 4 teams as well.
They can't figure out an international tournament for nothing. Like ever since the Canada Cup died, they can't figure it out. It's a
No.
joke.
Yeah. That's why the Olympics were always the best because it's like the NHL has no control over it besides agreeing to send their players.
Yeah,
They had no control over which teams would be there or anything like that. So
it's shameful. It's shameful the game like hockey doesn't have a consistent World Cup.
yeah.
Just fans, hockey fans, put your comments in the comment section below. Let's move to quick shots. If you're the Elks, are you going all in with Tre Ford next season? Yes, he has the tools. The guy can win. Invest in him financially. Use all the resources available that you have to prepare him to be starter at the beginning of the season. I mean, it's during the off season. That doesn't mean you don't bring in a suitable backup. Whoever it is, Jake Meyer, Jeremiah Masoli, bring someone, but Tre Ford is the answer, and you got to just go all in with him.
Yeah, I guess it all depends what's happening with Jarius Jackson. I haven't heard if he's staying on. Have you ever heard anything like that or? Yeah, so yeah, I agree with you. I think because there's not a lot of other options out there. Go with Tre Ford, see what he can do, bring a veteran guy in. but at the same time, not like bringing in McLeod Bethel Thompson kind of guy, bringing a guy that, hey, that you're the backup and you're going to support Tre Ford, and we're going to Tre Ford no matter what.
Thoughts on the Dwayne Wade statue?
Jeez. How how could someone, it's terrible. How could someone have looked at that statue and go, we nailed it? Like, I feel for Dwayne Wade to kind of look at that, and he kind of made a comment with it, like, what the kind of thing. Good God, it's worse than the Ronaldo one.
And that was a prank.
Yeah.
What the hell is that thing? Like, how is it people back in like Greece could make statues out of marble that look exactly like human beings with like a hammer and a chisel? But these fools can, it's horrible. Horrible. Is Aaron Rodgers done?
Yeah, I think so, man. I mean, it's hard to say though, obviously, right? We thought Bo Levi was done, and look what he did. But yeah, he's edging closer and closer to being on the other side of being done. And the Jets are a hot mess, so I don't think he's turning that around.
I think he's done. He's past his best due date, and he's not Peyton Manning. He's not a leader of men.
No.
The Jets are regretting it, and so is Devontae Adams.
Oh yeah, poor
Should the
Devontae.
Dolphins bench Tua? Yes. Their chances of making the playoffs are less than 10%. If this guy is the future of the franchise, which he is, I guess, if he gets injured again, now you're really screwed. Make this sure guy's rehab. No, why risk him now when you can't even make the playoffs? You know, you're supposed to be managing your multi-million-dollar assets here. Do that. Be smart. You're not making the playoffs. Sit his ass.
You know what? I had said no, that they should not bench him, but your argument actually makes sense in the fact that yes, their chances of making the playoffs are slim to none. That's a big loss to Arizona here the other day. I'm more worried right now of McDaniels and his coaching ability. The guy came in hot, but how do you lose that game when you got your full complement of guys in your running game? You have Arcane or A-Chain, sorry, who's got 10 yards per carry and only had 10 carries in the game. You know, you're doing something wrong, McDaniels, and I think the hot seat, he's going to be on the hot seat, and unfortunately, I think he's probably going to be the one getting the boot.
Problem is that guy likes to be everyone's friend.
Yeah,
he wants to give his boy Monster the carries, and he wants to share and be nice. Come on, man. Come on. After the Browns win with Winston, what would you plan to do with Watson moving forward?
Man, you can't do anything. You can't get rid of him unless you're going to find a team that's going to give you you're going to have to give them like a couple of first rounders to eat that salary or something, right? And really, you're not going to do that. So they're stuck with him. But yeah, you make him a backup. That's an expensive backup.
Sit his ass down until that last year of his contract when it doesn't hit the cap as much. Like, just win. If Winston's the answer, fine. Draft a quarterback next year because you're going to suck too. Yeah. So at least you have a quarterback with a rookie contract and won't hurt as much, but that's going to hurt Cleveland for a few years.
Yeah, just when you thought they were rising out of their hole, they went back down into that hole.
Cleveland.
I feel for you, Cleveland fans.
Oh, what do you say? What do you say, Cleveland? Benny, you have anything to say to our fans?
You know what? Just thanks a lot for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and follow, and have a good Bomber bye week. Go Jets, go. Sorry.
That's good. And in the words of Jim Mora, playoffs? You talking about playoffs? Yeah, it's playoffs time, man. CFL playoffs. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch the games when I have the time to, so enjoy it, CFL fans. I was going to give a thumbs up, but...
Double thumbs.
Did it anyways, eh?
Hey, friends and neighbors, don't forget to check us out online on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Ray Benny Sports. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell us what you think.